All right, it looks like we're going live. We've got the audio check. Everything looks good. Like to thank D&I for another awesome stream. Great content, I'm sure. Unfortunately, I missed it. So I'll make sure that I check back in soon. Let me pop out the chat. Let me throw out a quick tweet if anybody's on. Let's get the stream up on Twitter. So see what we got here. Make sure I'm live. Sure, I went public. All right, awesome. Let me get my voice here. Alex Yeet, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hopefully you made it safe from Guadalajara. XRP Carolina, good to see you on. Dansky, Stinkin' Jenkins. D&I sent you. That's awesome. Love to see you here. This is absolutely awesome. We're gonna have a good chat tonight. Let me pull it up. I always like to stay on top of my stream, make sure we're solid. So I got to pull it up on my phone and take a look at what's going on. So, man, it's always tough to be in a place where you could potentially get sick and maybe not be in the comforts of home. And you know, when you travel a lot, talking about Alex Yeet down in Guadalajara. But man, but I'm assuming you're back. You're in California. I forget exactly where you were traveling back to. XRP Minute. D&I sent you in as well. Awesome, Mr. D. Good to see you on. A lot of great people coming on here. So I'm just gonna give it a minute. Let people start bouncing in. If there's anything you guys want to comment on as you're bouncing in, that would be great. So let's see what we got here. Looks like there's a little bit of lag out. Doesn't make sense. Let me take a look at my stream. Everything's solid. So, all right, that's good. It is good. So I had some late meetings yesterday. There was I was hoping to get into each of the different streams, XRP Minute and D&I, and I was driving. It was insane. So had morning meetings, afternoon meeting, and then we had a dinner meeting, and we had to drive 3.5 hours to get to the dinner meeting. Got to hang out for a little bit, and then drove all the way back another 3.5 hours. So, and I was trying to log in while I was driving, and it didn't quite work out. So wasn't able to tune in. But I was way over on the west coast of Florida, and it was good out there. So if Brian Darcy is on, got some Kilburn tonight. So, man, yeah, and then tonight had another late meeting, and then someone called me after the meeting, and I'm rushing over here, and I'm on the phone with them, and I'm like, I gotta hang up, gotta get ready for the live stream tonight. So, looks like there's a little bit of lag. I'm not sure on the audio side. It really kills me when the video lags out like this. But all right. So, yo, Matt Richter, what's up, man? Good to see you on. Gonna give it just another minute here. I just want to pull something up, and then we're gonna get started and let people kind of bounce in as we go. So, oh, you know what I forgot to do? If you guys can throw that up on Twitter, that would be awesome. I forgot to tweet this out. Let me do that right quick as well. Meant to do that as I was logging in. So hopefully you guys all had a great day today. And there was some pretty amazing news across the board, whether it was Binance or PayPal, Coinbase custody. There's just a lot of interesting news that went on over the past day or so. Did you guys catch? Whoops. Hang on. Binance loses. I can't type and talk. Let me see if I can do this. All right, there we go. Now let me put this up here. Give me 1 second. I know you guys are just here. I am trying to take care of some business here with getting this up on Twitter, and meanwhile, not you guys are on saying what in the world did I log in for? If he's just going to be typing and trying to figure out how he can post up on Twitter, it doesn't make any sense. So there we go. Awesome. So check this out. All right, where'd my pop-up chat window go? Here we go. Man, you know what I need? I need an assistant that sits over here someplace and manages all of this other stuff that I'm trying to do on my own. That'd be awesome. Where are we at here? All right, cool. So notes. All right, a lot of thoughts. So we talked in the past couple of streams. Carl Wagner, what's up, man? Good to see you on. Glad you made it. So in the past couple of streams, my stream, and when we had DNI on, probably talked a little bit about this with XRP Minute. But they're in the world, as we all know. Yo, Annalise, good to see you on. GXRP, what's going on? Glad you made it on. In the world, we have good actors, we have bad actors. These good actors and bad actors can be individuals, they can be organizations, obviously they can be governments. Really nothing that we do can prevent bad actors from being bad or can stop these bad actors from unwanted provocation. It's out of our hands. There's always going to be bad. There's always going to be good. However, what we can do is be prepared. And really, we have to be prepared. Whether it's you're walking down the street late at night, don't put yourself in a bad predicament. And if you do put yourself in that position, then stay aware of your surroundings. Make sure that you can defend yourself, etc. So that happens whether you're walking out late at night, on the street. That has to do with how you protect your house. That has to do with how you protect your assets. It really crosses, all aspects of life. The key with all of that is that we have to be prepared. And really, now you can be a victim of circumstance and lose, or again, you can prepare yourself well in advance to prevent or mitigate the ill impact from a bad event. And now you're thinking, I'm talking about all this stuff, what's the purpose? Why am I talking about bad actors and good actors? Because when it comes to investment, individual investment, whether it's stock investment, real estate, gold investment, or digital assets, it's so important that we have a backup plan to defend our owned asset. Now, if you don't have a backup plan on how you're going to defend yourself or defend what you own, you defend your asset, then you're putting yourself in a position where you can become a victim of circumstance. Now, when you have fiat currency, or if you're putting money into a stock, into an exchange, you can invest with the relative comfort and expectance that this financial institution is going to back up your money through being an FDIC insured entity. Now, typically that insurance will only cover you up to $250,000. So if you're that kind of person that has millions, then you're not going to keep all million in one account because you're not going to be insured up to that total amount, and you're better off splitting it up and mitigating your risk because bad things happen. And now the same thing can happen regardless of what you invest in. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean just because you're FDIC covered with the exchange that you're invested in or the bank that you're invested in, bad things do happen. And this doesn't necessarily prevent your losses from a bad acting institution or a potential financial downturn, which impacts your stock valuation. Now, in the last conversation and previous videos or streams, I've brought up General Motors as an example because General Motors can really be held up as a perfect example of what can happen to an investor when a large corporation, a large entity, goes belly up in a sense. Now, the government decided GM was too big to fail. They bailed them out. They ended up owning a large percentage. As part of the negotiation, General Motors basically went into bankruptcy, dissolving their debt, and immediately launching a new corporate entity with a brand new stock ticker symbol. And anyone that was holding shares in the previous General Motors basically was left holding the bag and held virtually, valueless paper at that point. Now, you have to have a plan, we have to observe, and we have to watch and manage our plan throughout the process to make sure that we're sticking to the plan. Now, banks, financial institutions, and digital asset exchanges are all subject to theft, to hacking, and really other ill intent from bad actors. And it's gone on pretty much for as long as these institutions have existed. So you can't prevent it. Again, you're not going to necessarily prevent it from happening, but you can mitigate the impact in case something like that does happen. Now, one of the key concerns that mainstream has when it comes to digital assets is this very fact that digital assets seem to be more susceptible to hacking, more susceptible to theft, which may or may not be the case. However, with anything, and the reason why I brought up all these other scenarios is because with digital assets, it's no different, and it's even more important that with digital assets, it's important that we have a plan. It's important that we are able to protect our investment and take a certain level of self-reliance in order to really protect that asset. So let me just take a break here, and I'm going to continue my thought, but I'm looking down at my phone and I want to pop up the chat here. I'm seeing a bunch of messages and people that logged in, so I just want to say hello to a few people that popped in. Spanish Fly, good to see you on. XRP the Standard, let's see, Auburn Rain, what's up, man? Good to see you on. Glad you made it. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see your Binance video. I was in a meeting earlier. I saw it pop up, and I said that's funny because this was the topic that I actually prepared for tonight. I wish I would have had an opportunity to listen to your video before this chat. So I'm sure you have some great ideas and things to plug in here. So so look, I like that. Carl Wagner. I purposely keep out one word in my phrase, in my memory. I think that's important, keeping track, and again, preparing ourselves is so critical. Hang on, let me plug in my phone here. Here we go. Didn't think that the battery would die so quick. Let's see. Yeah, it's crazy. I wish last night, like I said, I missed out on Chip stream. I missed out on DNI stream, and then I saw your video kind of pop up and go through, and then this morning I was trying to catch up on a few things, and late last night I was finally able to log in and hear Chip stream as I was driving, but I was traveling with some people, so it was a little harder to decide to put that on. So, but anyhow, if we think back and just in the most recent memory of digital assets and things that are likely to happen or that can happen, and think about Mt. Gox. Think about what happened to Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox and the hacking, obviously there's a lot more involved in it, but millions and millions of dollars lost. Quadriga CX lost. And think about how much money was also lost with the Quadriga CX. I think, that's important because that just happened. We could have, anyone invested on that exchange should have had an opportunity to mitigate their loss by utilizing a Nano S. Now, is that, perfect? Is everybody comfortable utilizing a Nano S? Not everybody is comfortable using a Nano S. And I think, from that perspective, many are still going to keep their money on an exchange. Now, I've kept money on different exchanges, and I balance it out, mitigate your loss across a number of exchanges. There's digital asset investments on a Nano S. I've got multiple Nano S's. Then you have safety deposit boxes. There's all these different things that you need to do to mitigate your loss. Because think about, you have your Nano S, you have your passphrase, you have all this stuff, and it's in your house, and something happens, and now you lose everything. Is it important to then mitigate disaster, mitigate loss by having a backup, by putting something in a safety deposit box in a redundant, site off location, similar to the way they back up data, similar to the way they back up medical records, which is, utilizing redundant backup that is miles upon miles away from the original input source. So I think that's really important. A metal phrase would be a great idea. And then keeping that copy in multiple different locations, also a good idea. So Dansky, the day's coming when banks will hold and insure crypto for the masses. It's right around the corner. It's so amazing. It really, really is. And it's getting closer and closer with every single day that goes by. And it's so impressive. It really is. So let's see here. Jalisco, Mexico, Guadalajara. Alex, what is that from Mexico City? What is that like? That must be a couple hours at least from Mexico City, right? If you're driving. Not sure what the drive time would be. So, all right. So, so as we talk about, let me see. Let me just kind of get my thoughts back in order. I bullet pointed everything out. So some of the exchanges that we can think about out there, and can we trust all exchanges? Can we trust Coinbase? Can we trust Uphold? These are US based exchanges that are claiming to offer investors insurance on the amount of digital asset that's being held on their exchange. And that's actually really important. Oh man, 8-hour drive time. Okay. So I've been all over Mexico City. It's been a number of years since I was there. The last time I was there, I stayed in Zona Rosa. And then from there, I was in Monterrey. And Monterrey was, that area was awesome. So yeah, I love that. Okay, that's great, man. I'll tell you what, the first time I went down to Mexico, I've never been to Mexico really as a tourist. I've always been working down there when I went down there, but it gives you a completely different perspective of the country. And yeah, I was so impressed. I mean, the steak houses that we went to, the restaurants in Mexico were just outstanding. And the thing is, when you think about Mexican food, in U.S. terms, it's really like Tex-Mex, tacos, enchiladas, and that sort of thing. And that's not anywhere close to what true Mexican cuisine is all about. And real Mexican food has a nice European, kind of Spanish flair to it. And you get these amazing pastries, and the steaks are just absolutely outstanding. And chicken places, and there's one place Alex, you might be able to, I'm trying to think. I think we were in the Monterey area. I can't remember exactly. But they had a restaurant and they served goat. And it was like a specific variety of the way they cooked it. But, man, that place was awesome. Some really amazing times over there. So the question, again, is that, that all of us really have to ask. Okay, let me... I just saw something come up here. XRP Carolina BTC is over 6,000 on Coinbase. It's amazing, what's happening with BTC. So, and this is where I'm getting with all of this. You guys will kind of get it. It was in the title of my thumbnail as well. So I'm gonna get there in a minute. And so as we go through this, hang on, where'd I want to make sure that I kind of cover all of these notes that I put together. So the big question, again, that we have to ask ourselves is, what kind of financial plan do we have in case of disaster? But what kind of backup plan does the bank, the financial institution, the digital asset exchange, what kind of backup plan did they have in place when disaster strikes? So I think that's so critical. Now, when you can actually identify and you see the backup plan that this financial institution actually has, or this digital asset exchange has, I think it's all telling. It really, you can dig down deep into the core of the company ethics based on how they plan for disaster. Quadringa obviously wasn't planned. What were the ethics of that company that allowed all of their digital asset holdings to be tied to one individual? And regardless if he was going to steal it or, if he dies and takes those passcodes with him, how were they really thinking about their customer in that kind of a scenario? What was their backup plan? Obviously, they didn't have one, whether stolen or lost. They didn't really have a proper backup plan to mitigate the loss. And as a result, $150 million were lost. Now, we all saw, and we've been talking about it, and Rain made a video on it, and others have made videos on it already. I planned on this as a topic. I got to see part of CZ's statement that he put out on Twitter, and I think that it's so important when you see CZ come out and make a specific statement, and did so quickly, not to try to make up excuses, but he got out in front of a potential disaster, which was the loss of 7,000 Bitcoin, $41 million worth of Bitcoin, which is around 35 million euro stolen off of Binance. Now, everyone would have sat back previous to that and said, Binance, these guys have got, a huge amount of money. Someone earlier was talking about it, and they were saying in profit margin, they generate, I want to say they're doing about, $200 million per month or per quarter, I think is probably more likely in profit. $200 million per quarter in profit in 2018. So if you look at that, and that's staggering numbers, so that's close to $1 billion in profit taken from Binance. Now, the amount of loss, I think it was Ivan Tech that I was listening to, he said the amount of loss, which is still staggering, but it was 2% of the total holdings were taken. Now, again, if it was another exchange, if it was another CEO of the exchange that wasn't planning ahead, I think things would have turned out a lot differently. And again, CZ really got in front of it. Now, the thing is, when we look, he said it's definitely going to hurt. Rain. I mean, it's unbelievable. But what I saw is that many within the community stood up and really came forward and said, "How can we help?" how can we help resolve this scenario of what happened? Here's Binance, one of the largest exchanges in the world right now. I didn't get a chance really to look at the news lately since this morning on it to see if anything else came out on it. And maybe you guys have some updates. Rain, maybe you got some updates on it. But this could have been an inside job. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was an external hack. It could have been somebody on the inside. So it could be an external threat. It could be a group. It could be an individual. It could be an organization. Or it could even be a bad actor government that's specifically targeting Binance. Now, could you imagine if it's a government actor, if it's a government, it's a state that is specifically targeting one of the larger cryptocurrency exchanges with a specific purpose? That's a possibility. It could be something that was interior, that's happening from somebody on the inside. Really, either way, if it's an external influence, if it's an individual or a group of individuals or an organization, obviously they could potentially be into it for the financial gain of it. But again, imagine if it's an external influence with an ulterior motive to really attempt to collapse the largest exchange in the world and send the prices plummeting. Now, it doesn't mean that they're looking to target it to destroy the digital asset space. It could mean that they're attempting to reduce or have an expectation of a reduction of the price point of a Bitcoin, for instance. Now, it's amazing. I forget whoever posted that a little while ago. I think it was XRP Carolina, stating that Bitcoin right now is over $6,000 on Coinbase. So what that says is the response from Binance, the response from CZ was really the right message to boost confidence in the space. Right. So now if you think about what were some of the scenarios, some of the solutions that CZ put on the table, he was very open with the idea of, here's some of the solutions that I have. And one of the ideas was that there was an anticipation of actually rolling back and doing a rollback on the blockchain. Now, could you imagine what that could potentially have done if all the large groups got together and said, there's a way we can actually roll back the blockchain? Now, that to me is insane. So that would set a very negative precedence of potential manipulation of the blockchain. However, just the fact that they thought about it is also a good thing, because all the big organizations decided to rule it out, that they don't even want to go down that path. Spanish Cobra, appreciate your comment. Appreciate the $5. That's awesome. Comment there. Funny how the crypto community loves to FUD XRP, but BTC, with all of its problems, gets a pass time and time again. You're 100% on that. And I think people are, beginning to go to the next level on BTC as well, and skipping over it in some scenarios. And we'll talk a little bit about PayPal in a little while, that they don't want to be left behind. So again, what really strikes me as really an important takeaway from this whole situation. Now, it could have ended up much, much worse. Obviously, we look, oh my God, $41 million lost. The thing is that CZ had a backup plan. They had the money set aside to mitigate a disaster in case anything like this ever happened. So they had Bitcoin set in a cold storage, again, to mitigate problems. So they were prepared. They had a plan. They had a disaster plan. What will we do if we're ever hacked? Obviously, they want to do everything that they want to avoid that possibility. So what's up with this tap line? 6,000. Let's see here. What just happened here? 6,075.08. That's pretty crazy. So man, that just shows me that there's ultimate confidence in the digital asset space. There's confidence in Bitcoin, regardless of the breach that just occurred over at Binance, that the market is responding and saying you did things the right way, and we have a lot of, again, confidence in the market. So XRP Minute hacks will continue to happen. It's the nature of the beast. That's exactly right. Where there's money, the bad actors will flock. And they're obviously flocking to the digital asset space. And they think, hey, you know what? We can get away with it. But you're talking about people that are, spend their entire existence on the blockchain tracking money. I'm sure they can track down the addresses of where it went. And one wrong move, and they'll keep following the Bitcoin as it goes out there. But stuff's going to happen again if they find out that it was an inside job. That again changes a lot. So I like Auburn Rain. Custody. That is really important. Especially when we look at mainstream adoption. Now, what's important here as well is the news. So we see the news immediately rolls out, and the general media focuses in on the fact that Binance just lost $41 million. But it's the response. It's the way the community reacts to it. It's so important. Now, again, the fact that CZ had already taken precautionary measures, it's great. Now, he took another precautionary measure and shut down the exchange temporarily to allow for their security measures to review the gaps in the security and close the hole. They immediately told everyone to, and they took it upon themselves to reset the API, and then they told everyone to reset their two-step authentication. So that's just phenomenal. Where else have we seen an exchange that has jumped? CEO, boom, right there on Twitter. CEO immediately putting out ideas out there for everybody to hear, for everybody to see, and taking swift action. Fantastic. I think that's really all telling as to what this space is all about. So gaming crypto, what's up? Definitely interesting times. That's right, Rain. XRP, man. It's we're not going to see an XRP hack. I would anticipate. Obviously they go after the banks. They go after RippleNet. Full security. I think they have ways to and I'm sure that they're prepared. I think that we're in a scenario where more and more these larger institutions, the larger banks, the central banks, they're all going to look at this and say, where do we feel the most comfortable? And there was actually a lot of other very positive news that dropped. I don't remember if I put the link here or if I left it open in my browser, but just real quick. And I love this letter. I think this letter is so important that went out from the Binance team. And it said here, immediately, due to irregular trading on some APIs, Binance will restrict all currently existing API keys to have trading functionality only. These keys will then be removed in full at 1:30 p.m. UTC. Boom. That's awesome. Reset it. Take a proactive measure and move on. And they want to make sure that they sort through every possible precaution, every possible hole to find out, what and how the breach occurred. So I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. Such an important thing to talk about, and it just filters in again as to the importance of this space, but also not just the importance of the space, but the fact that as early adopters, we have to take responsibility for our own action. What an amazing message to send to the young people today. How many people in this country and in any country for that matter is sending a clear message of direct responsibility that this is where it starts. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I told my son I'm going to get him a Nano S. I'm going to set him up with a wallet, and he's going to start investing in XRP and some of the other digital assets. He's right at that point where you teach him about finances. You teach them about financial accountability. It's so critical. It really is critical. Yo, Rain, thank you very much for that. Anybody else, you're on. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. That'd be fantastic. And then if you haven't given a thumbs up yet, go ahead and give a thumbs up. That will definitely help out as well. And then tweet it out. Let others know that we like to gather at 10 o'clock at night and have these conversations. So, quick question. What, just as a side note here, as we're moving on to something else. So, let's see, that's a 20 XRP burn for the XRP address. That is, man, you know what? And if you go back and watch one of my videos, I said that we could get to a point where XRP will be unaffordable to most people. Obviously, there's a way to adjust that 20 XRP hold on opening up a new address. But you know, imagine when it goes up fast. And this goes back, and Rain and I were talking about this before the Zoo chat last week, and it's amazing because when we had that rocket from 24 cents to $3 and close to 50 cents, opening a brand new XRP wallet at that time was like $60, $60 put to the side. They didn't change the investment. They didn't change that amount that was put on hold. But all of a sudden, it was $60 to open up a wallet. You know, it went from so let's say right now, 20 XRP is what, like $5. So it's amazing. You know, so if you look at that transition, that could have made it very difficult. People are investing at 24 cents, 30 cents. You can take smaller amounts of money. You can take $100, $250, $500, $10, whatever it is, and you can open a brand new address. But now imagine you've got, you know, it costs $60 just to open up that address for the first time. You know, that can get a little costly for some people. But anyhow, let's see, your first video was about, that's awesome. And I love that idea. You know, I love that whole question on it. And, you know, and it's a good thing. GXRP, the greatest digital asset ever created, is so affordable right now. It's unbelievable. And we're in that kickoff phase. You know, we talked about E-Trade. We've talked about Fidelity. You know, we've talked about so many that are getting into this space right now and getting ready to roll it out for mainstream adoption. Man, it's right there. Now, when mainstream adoption kicks in and these large financial institutions kick in, and they go into full gear, imagine the amounts of money that are going to be moved into the digital asset space. Now, when they come into the digital asset space, they're going to look, and many of those retail investors are going to look at the top 5. They're going to look at the top 10. They're going to look at those that have the name, those that people talk about. You know, I think that's where we're going to see, you know, this migration of money. Right now, we're talking about really, pocket change compared to what these big financial institutions can bring to this space. Now, something else that came up. So we're thinking about, you know, mainstream adoption. We're thinking about utility. We're talking about financial, personal responsibility for your finances. With all of this stuff going on, in order to see that mainstream adoption, it needs to go a step further. We need to look at custody. In order for large financial institutions to take that giant leap into the space, there has to be a third-party custodian, Gemini, Coinbase, an Uphold, potentially Binance in the custody space. Those are the ones that the third-party financial institution, or that the financial institutions are going to work with, to where these custodial accounts will hold the digital assets in cold storage for the investors of and the customers of these financial institutions. It's so critical. So we begin, and something that that D&I talks about a lot on his channel. He talks about incrementalism, and looking at all the little aspects of what's happening to really identify what the next occurrence could be from a global perspective. Think about all the little incremental advances that have happened in this space with the adoption through the financial institutions, and little by little, we see little things occurring. When we see, and that to me, is so important. It's so impressive that over the past, really, since we saw the market go into a slump, and then you see all this FUD spread and people are getting all antsy and thinking about backing out. And then you see the community, and the community's all pumped up. The community's all fired up. People are starting new YouTube channels, the content creators, everybody's sticking together, staying positive. And then you start seeing what's really happening. And you start seeing the financial institutions have been developing their base to get into this space this entire time. You see Coinbase getting ready to introduce Coinbase custody, which they've rolled out. You see Coinbase that, think about the months and months and months that went by that Coinbase wasn't adding XRP. They weren't adding anything but Bitcoin. They had ETH, they had LTC. Then all of a sudden they added ETC. Everyone's like, what the hell? Why are they adding ETC? Then all of a sudden, they added Dogecoin. Everyone's like, was it Dogecoin or not Dogecoin? Whatever the other ones they added. Everyone's like, what the hell are they adding those other ones for? Why aren't they adding XRP? They were getting ready. They weren't ready to introduce and bring in the XRP yet. There's obviously a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that none of us know about. And then all of a sudden, boom, they add XRP. Then they add XLM. And then we start, hearing the rumblings from within with these big financial institutions. And now they're getting ready. Now they just added the Dogecoin. Uphold had the Dogecoin. Robinhood allowed you to invest in Dogecoin. But things are moving. Now we're seeing these financial institutions that were previously all about the FUD and the bad mouthing of this space and all this stuff happening, and the Jamie Dimons of the world, just full of shit, and what the hell is what's up with that? When they're bad mouthing this space, and at the same time they're getting their foundation built. They want to keep everybody away because they realize, and we talked about this when D&I was on, we said, is it top down or is it bottom up? And this space is being built from the bottom up. We have those early adopters in this space and generating the excitement, proving the utility case. We have the smaller entities like the XRP tip bot and Coil and all these components that are being built in before the financial institutions, before the banks, before everybody else is getting involved. And now it's going up, and it's so impressive because now when it goes up and they grab onto it and they want to pretend like they're the early adopters. So when you look back in history, if we allow the big financial institutions to write history, which there's a good chance they're the ones that will write history. They're the ones that are going to say, oh, we saw this space and we saw the potential in trade. Just like in the last stream, I brought up an article with the bank in Canada and what was it? The bank in Singapore, Malaysia, wherever it was, and they're testing out cross-border payment, and as though nobody has done it yet, and they're working with JP Morgan, and they're like, figuring out that they're the first in the industry to even think about bringing it to central banks. Obviously, there's so much more to it, but now think about a couple months ago, even PayPal completely late to the party, and PayPal not getting into digital, completely kind of missing the boat with everything. And now, better late than never, PayPal is coming to the party. And there's this article that came out on CCN, and I think it's so timely because PayPal was our kind of avenue to digital payments. They kind of held the mantle for the longest time. They came out of eBay, and they were the first. And it was exciting when you got to open up a PayPal account and you got to receive PayPal. I keep thinking donations. Obviously not donations. PayPal payments. That was an exciting time when PayPal first came out and you could buy and sell and use PayPal without a bank. That was so different, it's so interesting. And then we look at this space and it's developing. And I remember just a few months back, I'm like, what the hell is PayPal doing? They're going to drop off the face of the earth. These guys, they're just not with it. What are they thinking? Why are they kind of anti-digital asset at this point? And what's it going to take for them? What's it going to take for them to get into the digital asset space? Sorry, there's like a small mosquito or something flying around me, and it's driving me absolutely insane. So here's the headline of this article, and this article just dropped today on CCN. PayPal skips Bitcoin while clearly working on blockchain and cryptocurrency. How cool is that? Now, we're just talking about the adoption of Bitcoin and how important Bitcoin is. PayPal doesn't want to miss out on blockchain and the crypto revolution. Let me share this. This is so cool. Hang on. There I am. There we go. Boom. All right. Let me transition over and pull this article up. I love this, and the reason why I love this is because, again, PayPal as the first in this digital payment space, and they're coming late to the game, but they're in the game, just like Fidelity and E-Trade. They have identified and realized that they have to be in this space. Now, what's interesting is that they're basically anybody but Bitcoin. They're skipping over Bitcoin. They don't want to work with Bitcoin. So that's interesting. And here it is right here. Look at their statement. This is such an important statement. We have teams clearly working on blockchain and cryptocurrency as well, and we want to take part in that in whatever form that takes in the future. I just think it's a little early on right now on Bitcoin, whatever that statement means. But this is just so impressive. Bitcoin skepticism, but they're identifying that this space has to be. They have to get into the space. Bitcoin transactions may be slower, but are still cheaper than PayPal. So if they're slower, that doesn't help. PayPal doesn't want to slow down. People are willing to pay a little bit more if it's fast. You don't want to wait, and pay a little less. Obviously, there's some people that'll do that, but it's obvious that that things need to change. And if things need to change, you're not going to sacrifice necessarily speed. So they want to have a faster transaction, but they also want a cheaper transaction. And Bitcoin isn't going to provide both of them. So obviously there's better ways to do that, and they really need to figure that out. PayPal, I'm talking about, that there's other better digital assets that they should be working with as a bridge currency that can offer significantly more. And who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But I just thought I'd bring that out because I think it's so important when you see the bigger entities beginning to adopt and get into this space and realizing, how critical this space really is. So let's see here. Let me transition back. Let me throw this one up. There we go. Hey, what do you guys think of this this background? I love this background. The mountains back here. You got the freighter ship. Man, you got the sun was setting. I kind of capture a little bit of the haze over the mountains. Man, this is awesome. I love this picture. And there's so many aspects that I'm zoomed into just one little component of the picture, and there's so much to this picture. I'm thinking about printing this one out and putting it up on the wall, kind of slicing it into three components, maybe move the ship over a little bit, maybe put the ship on the middle panel and have like a tri-panel canvas hanging up in the living room. I think that would be kind of cool. But let's see here. Where'd I go? All right. So, so that's PayPal. And then we jump a step further. And obviously we're starting to see Coinbase, make really big jumps like we were just talking about. And the fact that Coinbase is jumping into custody, I think is even more important. Now there's this statement that came up. Hang on, I got to open up. Let me open this up. Hang on a second. This was on avc.com, and this is so critical when it comes to the purpose and the need for Coinbase custody or custody in general. Now this is this statement here. Our portfolio company Coinbase has been building an institutional grade regulated custodial service for crypto assets over the past 18 months. It's called Coinbase Custody, and it is a qualified institutional custodian, which means that investors that are regulated can use it to satisfy their custodial requirements. So that's important. And I was just mentioning that earlier, for these bigger financial institutions to get in and make sure that they're abiding by the requirements. So here it says Coinbase Custody operates as a standalone, independently capitalized business. Coinbase Custody is a fiduciary under New York State banking law. New York State banking law is absurd. Just like most of the New York State laws are extremely difficult when it comes to financials, and so if you can be recognized by New York State banking law, you can be recognized by pretty much every other state, it seems like. All digital assets are segregated and held in trust for the benefit of their clients. Now, this is right there. That's such an important statement. And now, if you're going to be recognized as a fiduciary under New York State banking law, and the fact that you're holding digital assets that are separate and they're being held in trust for their clients, imagine the reputation that you need. Imagine how much reliance entities are now putting in this organization to keep their digital assets safe, and the fact that they have to be insured and that your digital assets aren't going to be hacked out like just happened with Binance. So that's such an important development. Let's see here. Let me go back to some of the chat. It's good to be engaged here. So Jacob's Ladder, what's going on? Glad to see you on here. Devon Steve, glad to see you on. Miyagi, glad you made it on. Let's see here. Oh, I just scrolled past by mistake. I wonder how many BTC Maximus realize when they use their Visa card, they'll be using XRP. That's a good question. I'm sure they'll be really upset, when BTC is really just for investment, and XRP and the XRP ledger is what's going to what the entire is going to help build the entire foundation of the financial markets. I think that's kind of important to note. So let's see. Devon Steve, if you've made 4 zeros, you won't be bothered about paying a bit more. Now, if you've made tons of zeros, yeah, paying a little bit, won't be the worst thing, but I'd like to pay a little bit less regardless. So Miyagi, let's see. What does it say? I used top work on a ship like that. On what? Top work? Let's see here. Nice picture. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that. Oh, now going back to the picture. I used to work on a freighter ship. I got it. I'm connecting the dots now as I go through the chat and the delay and everything. Got to connect the conversation. So that's really cool. All right, let's see. What do we got here? That was great. This was a, great chat tonight. Lot of great things happening. Anything else that you guys want to throw up here would be awesome. Any other feedback? That would be outstanding. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. Now, I just want to throw this out there. And it's interesting because I had another conversation about this earlier with somebody. When it comes to the crossover of economics and politics, how many of you guys enjoy listening to the impact that politics has on economics, and willing to listen to different perspectives, politically speaking? So just throw up a yes or a quick comment and say absolutely no. I'm on these streams, really to be more engaged in digital assets only. So awesome. So former merchant mariner, very cool, man. That's awesome. I've always wondered what goes on those ships. When we were taking a cruise a few weeks back, and we get to the boats, and they had one of those tankers. They were putting all the big containers on the ship, and I told my son, I was like, "Yeah, that's the ship that we're going on." He goes, "No." Brady Niels, what's up? Glad to see you respond. You've never voted, man. I tell you what, I get it. For years, and what? Let me ask you, what country are you in? Are you in the U.S. or are you elsewhere? Ex-Navy, XRP Carolina. Appreciate your service. Glad you mentioned that. All respect, complete respect. Politics are definitely going to play a huge role in the final domino fall here in the U.S. That's definitely impactful. Yeah, Devon, yes, politics can be polarizing. One thing I find that's important discussing it is really trying to keep everything very above board, keep everything very level, and I think people can have pretty amazing discussions. Politically speaking, there's a lot of things happening from an international perspective that are impacting the economy as a whole, and really identifying. That's what on Saturday morning, if you guys were on that stream, I tried to dig in a little bit into the overall understanding the international dynamics from a political perspective to gauge also where some of the power players can be also impacting our economy and other things, which kind of fit well into some of the things that D&I talked about. So it was so awesome, being able to have D&I on and engaging in that conversation with him on Monday. And I look forward to doing that again. So, Brady, I vote and for money, I'm in the U.S. Okay, that's great. You know what? I'll tell you what. And this is something that yo, Sassy one, what's up, man? All strong. So so this is something that I learned. It's been a number of years already, but I remember I was at a conference, and I was talking to a guy, and it was this older Jewish guy, and he told me that he did a significant amount of work over in the Middle East, and he did a lot of work over in Dubai, in Kuwait, in Saudi, in all these different places, and we're talking. And then he told me, he said, well, you know what? I actually have residency in Dubai. And I was a little shocked. I said, I can't believe that, they would allow you to have residency in Dubai. And he said to me, so, well, money comes first. He said, at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing. And, over the years, I've been able to work with people in pretty much every country that there is. I've been involved in a significant amount of trade, throughout different parts of the world. I got to travel to different places. And, you know, it's pretty amazing because going to when I went to Dubai for the first time, it was the same thing. You know, I didn't know what to expect, and it was pretty amazing, you know. But before that, and going to some conferences over in Europe and being able to meet some of the customers for the first time that I'd worked with in different parts of the Middle East, and, you know, coming together and having conversations. And I remember one guy, you know, we're sitting and drinking coffee, and he told me, he said that forget about religion, forget about the politics. You know, at the end of the day, the people on the street, again, they all want the same thing. They want what's best for their families. They want to make money. They want to trade. They want to build businesses. They want to get along. You know, they want to make money. And that's what it's all about from the street level. Then, you know, you have the bad actors, and then you have the governments, and there's aspects that we can never control. But the one thing that we can definitely control is how we interact with other people, how we treat other people. And really the way we're going to treat other people is how we in turn expect to be treated. If you know, have respect for others, you would anticipate they'll have respect for you. Obviously, there's going to be bad people out there. There's going to be bad messages out there. But from a general rule of thumb, I find that, you know, people really, again, you know, they want to work together. They want to communicate together. And who was it that said politics can be a little bit polarizing? And it can be, and it shouldn't be. You know, but that's the tendency of what the external entities really are anticipating from the people on the ground. Because us, you know, in the community, us, you know, right now on this chat, on this stream, or on DNI stream, or an XRP Minute stream, or an Auburn Range stream, or whoever's stream we get onto, regardless of what part of the world you're from, you know, look at the chats, look at the interactions, you know, look how amazing it is. To me, you know, again, and I said this before, to me, the digital asset space is so much more than just, you know, looking for a way to gain a little bit of money. The digital asset space is the way to bring mainstream together, is a way for mainstream to communicate with each other, is a way for mainstream to work with each other, and is a way for mainstream to work with each other, not necessarily circumventing the larger banking institutions, but being able to do so and with an exchange of ideas, with an exchange of finances, with an exchange of trade, without the polarizing impact that comes from other directions that can definitely be detrimental. Now, as a final note, and I think this is really interesting, and I pulled this article up, and I meant to kind of bring it up in the beginning. Let me see if I can find it on my phone, because I've got it pulled up in my Brave browser on the phone. Let me see here. This is an interesting article anyways, by Dalmas on Ethereum World News, and XRP Bank was quoted in this article. But here's why Ripple Inc. must engage with central banks. That's not the article I wanted to read. Let's see. Coinbase custody. Where did this article go? Come on. No, this is such a great one. I have the gist of it, but I've got like a million articles, and none of the articles. How is that even possible? Let me. Maybe it's on Chrome. Oh, it's on Chrome. Okay, so we talked about PayPal. I don't need to talk about the U.S. courts or the $7 trillion asset that Fidelity is holding. We don't have to talk about Facebook suddenly relaxes crypto ads. And why is Facebook relaxing on their crypto ads? Because they're getting ready to launch into the crypto space, and they don't want to penalize themselves. It's not in here. I don't know where this article is. Anyhow, so how many of you guys know what a letter of credit is? Just throw up a yes if you know what a letter of credit is. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back up here and look at some of these comments. And then we'll wrap up on this letter of credit idea, which I thought, something I had thought about before, and I think it's really cool. And it has something to do with R3 Corda. Auburn Rain, Taxonomy Act is huge. Taxonomy Act can be huge. It's going to be, I threw out a note, and I got to see if they responded back to me on that. Let's see. Auburn Rain, powers that be want you to be silent and not vote so that they can do their dirty deeds. Yep, I believe that. Brady, yes, money should come first. It's how we communicate to one another in an open and free market. Screw around with the money alters the message. This sends other investors the wrong message. It does. Drain the swamp 2020. Rain. Okay, so let's see. DAI was talking about that today on in one of his videos. Okay, so man, thanks, Rain. So the letter of credit, and it's so important because, and I talked about this. I'm trying to remember which video I talked about the letter of credit on. And when we look at cross-border payments is only one part of international trade. So obviously, if we can exchange money and we can do it faster, we can do it transparently, we can do it cheaper, and we don't have to utilize SWIFT. We know the status. We know that it's clearing. We know it's not going to be bounced back and wait another week to try to resubmit again. There's so many, issues within cross-border payments that obviously have been addressed. The letter of credit is such an important aspect of international trade, working with an entity that you don't necessarily know, and maybe there's more of a comfort level for them. So basically, there's a third-party clearinghouse. They are the holders of the money, the holders of the paper, the holders of the agreement. Now, in order to do that, the letter of credit, there has to be specific terms that have to be stipulated within the letter of credit and have to be accepted by both parties. And the letter of credit has to match the terms and conditions and the line item description of the product being sold to the amount of currency being exchanged. If there's any issue in this letter of credit, it can be rejected. And again, money gets tied up and trade gets delayed. And I can't tell you how many times I was caught in a scenario where we had a letter of credit from an entity. They wanted to buy something. The risk in that scenario is that you have to rely on this third-party bank, and now you're loading up a container with stuff, with equipment or whatever, and you ship this container across the ocean to another country, to a receiving party, with the risk really sitting out there. Because if someone transfers money and they pick up a product from your warehouse, the risk is now transferred over to the purchasing party. In a letter of credit scenario, you have to spell out risk. We were talking about risk earlier. So, and I can't remember if I had the article. I read through it. It was so awesome because it fit into the narrative. But within the letter of credit, so now you have to match all of these key terms and everything. And if it falls apart, then your trade falls apart, but you're taking a risk because you're shipping goods. The other party's taking a risk because they're putting tens and thousands, if not over, hundreds of thousands of dollars into a third-party bank, hoping that everybody's going to fulfill their end of the bargain. Smart contracts, Miyagi, exactly. So R3 with Corda, and I can't remember the other entity. I don't know. I can't remember it. It's an important entity. They're working on redoing the antiquated letter of credit and at least testing out this antiquated form of letter of credit. And it's more antiquated in terms of its functionality than the SWIFT exchange of funds. And the letter of credit's so crazy because you have to go down and you read through all these terms. You don't understand a lot of the terms. Then you have to write in, and a lot of times it's handwritten. And think about when you're in the United States, a lot of times it's easy to do wire transfers because you can do it from the convenience of your office, on your computer. When you're overseas, a lot of the banks don't have access, so you have to go into the bank branch. You have to dick around with all this stuff. And now with the letter of credit, it's very similar. And you have a third-party entity that you're dealing with trying to get advice. So you're dealing with your bank, talking to your bank saying, can you please walk me through this letter of credit? I know I've done it 100 times, but if I screw up on this letter of credit, it's going to be rejected. It's going to take weeks for that to happen. The customer's money is going to be locked up for weeks. Their money's not going to be released. Then we have to start this whole process all over again. So imagine how screwed up that is, that this is a method of transaction. I had one customer that wanted to utilize, did tons of business with them, but they wanted to utilize the letter of credit for every transaction we did because their bank was floating them credit based on the letter of credit. The bank was sending the money and fulfilling the obligation and giving them credit for the period of time that the container was shipping over, which was like a 3 to 4 week ship time. And then so you have the container shipping over, and then you have customs clearance and bribes and whatever they had to do to get their stuff out of customs. Who knows? That's on their end. All sorts of chaos. In the meantime, you're like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks out before you get paid for the goods that you already shipped, and all this stuff could blow up in your face. It was so difficult. So think about the utility of a blockchain technology, and imagine the banks, and imagine, being able to tie the letter of credit in with a cross-border payment, and still having a third party which holds your money in custody while the transaction's taking place. The difference is that everything is transparent. Everything is easy to see. Everything is online. Everything is documented. And as soon as you document it, could bounce back and say, nope, that information's incorrect. Nope, that information doesn't match up with the other party. And it could be simplified to do it through a smart contract, to do it through the blockchain. And now the company that they're utilizing is R3. And what is it? It just evaded me. Something Raptor. I can't think. It was something that utilizes Corda. So imagine that, right? So imagine they're using Corda, and as we know, Corda is using XRP as the digital asset. So all of this stuff comes together. To me, it's amazing, right? We have all these different aspects of how trade and movement of finances is taking place from every level. And when you think about, and that's what excited me and excites me to this day about the XRP ledger, about XRP, about everything that Ripple is doing, is the functionality of the XRP ledger, the fact that the exchange of currency, that platform is inherently built in to simplify this whole process. Man, it makes so much sense that all of these there's so much potential use of it as it develops. And then we look at some of the other digital assets, and really they're relatively limited without the structure being built around them. Obviously there's functionality, but which digital asset at this point in time was built, in this blockchain and the ledger with a specific use case in mind, and with the potential of expanding out into that use case in the financial area. It's so impressive. It's so amazing. And like I said, every day there's great things that are going on, and I'm just happy to be involved in it. So that's those are my 2 cents, and I'm glad I'm just throwing that all out there. So let me go back here, and it's already 8:12. I'm going to be going a little bit longer than anticipated again. I wanted to try to keep it within the hour, but I think all the technical issues in the beginning and that nonsense, that accounts for like 5 or 10 minutes. So I get to go over a little. I get to get that part down a little bit better. Maybe start out a little earlier instead of right on the minute. Edward, why doesn't President Trump not wear glasses? Because he has. I like that. Nice one. That's a good one. I gotta use that one. Let's see. Sounds like a hard job with the LOC. Yeah, that's insane. So much paperwork. Yep, Steve-O. Glad you're on, Steve-O. I don't know if I've seen you on before. Maybe you've been on and haven't commented. But for all those who are still on, you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And anybody who is subscribed, if you want to get immediate notifications, you haven't done so already, hit that little bell. That definitely helps with getting notified. But at the same time, you guys know Monday and Wednesdays I'm on at 10 p.m. Tuesdays, Thursdays, you can check out XRP Minute Friday, you can check out Auburn Rain. Saturday mornings, I'm on at 8 a.m. Then you've got DNI on at 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then we've got before that, you got Brad, and you got all sorts of other people that are live streaming. You got the Zoo on Mondays, and there's so much. Chip, where is the website? When is the website coming out? We need to be able to keep track of all this stuff. It's so difficult. Anyhow, let's see. Miyagi, XRP just revolutionizes the whole financial sector to one frictionless ecosystem. It's really amazing if you sit back and think about it. It really is. It's really amazing. Dansky, I'm just going through some of these comments and we're going to sign off. On a similar topic, real estate transactions, 100% agree, Dan. 100%. I think real estate, and I would love to have another conversation about real estate. So, and really appreciate everybody coming on. Ed, yes, everything of value will use XRP. Let's hope it does. So again, thank you guys for coming on. Thanks for participating. Look forward to seeing you guys. Man, today's Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday morning. Until that time, keep on hodling those crypto. All right, thanks again.